Hey guys, my name is Ben. You can find me at Boy Scout Ben on social media, and welcome back to Timeless Share. Today we're going to go through a few verses in Ecclesiastes 6, specifically verses 1 through 9, and talk about those for a minute. Now, as always, I encourage you to read those verses for yourself. You'll always get more out of it than if you did just listening to this. Read the book for yourself. But also, I'm going to encourage you to potentially read another version than you have that you usually read. Now, myself, when I read the Bible normally, and I think every time that I've read a passage out of the Bible for this YouTube channel, I've used an ESV Bible, an English Standard Version translation. If you guys don't know, basically there are a ton of different translations from the original manuscripts that the Bible was written in, because the Bible wasn't written in English. It was written primarily in Hebrew and Greek, and those manuscripts have been translated into English. And so there's the English Standard Version, there's the New International Version, there's the King James Version, there's the New Living Translation. And all of these translations are fine, really, but you have to understand kind of how they were translated. Imagine that there's a spectrum of translations. There's word-for-word translations on one side, and there's idea-for-idea translations on the other side. All of the translations that we have that are in English fall somewhere on this spectrum. So, for example, the English Standard Version Bible, which I love, is a very word-for-word translation. So each word that is used is very literal to what the original word would have been. But sometimes that can make the meaning more confusing, and so you have translations like the New International Version, or perhaps like the New Living Translation, or perhaps the most idea-for-idea translation is the Message Bible. And so the literal words that are used in each translation may not be the literal word that was used in the original Hebrew or Greek language, but the idea may carry over better. And when I was reading Ecclesiastes 6, 1 through 9 in my ESV Bible, I was finding myself being a little bit perplexed, and so I had to branch out and I went over to the New Living Translation and read from there. So if you're confused reading this passage on whatever translation you usually do, you don't have to stay confused. Try a different translation, try a more idea-for-idea translation. What I'm going to be using today is the New Living Translation, and see if that helps you understand it a little bit better. Reach out to other people as well if you have good Christian mentors around you, and ask them to explain it to you if you're still not understanding it. But yeah, that was just a little side note, a little detour. I'm going to be using a different translation than usual today. But with that being said, I'll go ahead and read those verses for us now. There is another serious tragedy I have seen under the sun, and it weighs heavily on humanity. God gives some great wealth and honor and everything they could ever want, but then he doesn't give them the chance to enjoy these things. They die, and someone else, even a stranger, ends up enjoying their wealth. This is meaningless, a sickening tragedy. A man might have 100 children and live to be very old, but if he finds no satisfaction in life, and doesn't even get a decent burial, it would have been better for him to be born dead. His birth would have been meaningless, and he would have ended in darkness. He wouldn't even have had a name, and he would never have seen the sun or known of its existence. Yet he would have had more peace than in growing up to be an unhappy man. He might live 1,000 years twice over, but still not find contentment. And since he must die like everyone else, well, what's the use? All people spend their lives scratching for food, but they never seem to have enough. So are wise people really better off than fools? Do poor people gain anything by being wise and knowing how to act in front of others? Enjoy what you have rather than desiring what you do not have. Just dreaming about nice things is meaningless, like chasing the wind. Alright, so what are these verses talking about? Like me, you guys may have been a bit confused reading through this the first time, but we can get through this together. We can find out what these verses are actually saying. So King Solomon is who wrote the book of Ecclesiastes, by the way, but Solomon starts off by talking about a tragedy, an evil that he has seen in life. And that is, people are chasing after wealth. They're desiring wealth so much. They're letting other things fall to the side. They're coveting. But they spend so much time chasing this wealth that they don't even have the time to enjoy it once they've procured it. They've let everything else pass to the side. Potentially their relationship with their family, relationship with friends, maybe opportunity to serve the Lord, all so that they can spend time gaining more wealth. And they're always coveting more. And then at the point that they're finally like, all right, now it's time to stop and enjoy this, if they ever do, they're right on the edge of death. Or perhaps they die before they ever get to the point where they're like, all right, now it's time to slow down and stop. And Solomon goes on to write in verses basically 3-6 and saying it would be better to be born dead than to live like this. It would be better to be born dead than to go through life letting every opportunity to develop relationships and serve the Lord and all of this pass to the side just to chase wealth, which you will never even have the opportunity of spending. I think that it's become more common in our society to sacrifice a lot of things in our personal life so that we can get that promotion, get that raise, all of that sort of stuff. I haven't had a lot of experience with that personally, but I have friends who have. Solomon is saying, if this is how you live your entire life, what was the point type of thing? And in verse 9, I think he really wraps it up well. Go figure, Solomon, the wisest man to ever live, wrapped it up well. But he says, enjoy what you have rather than desiring what you don't have. He gives us a message to not covet things. Don't spend our life chasing after, the next shiny thing. Instead, be content with what you have. God will provide for you. Be content with what you have. Spend your time how God is calling you to spend your time. With that being said, thank you guys. Check out the Plan of Salvation video and come back tomorrow to watch another devotional. See you later, guys.